Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Please do us a favor and just enter your name and location in the chat. Thank you for joining us for the Social Connection in Working and Retirement Years webinar. The Boston University Alumni Association and the Society of Terrier Alumni Retiree Networks sponsored today's event. My name is Liliana Mickle. I'm a member of the Alumni Generational Engagement Team in the Office of Alumni Relations. Today's webinar was offered to over 100,000 alumni in the United States, and we appreciate everyone who has joined us. As a part of the Development and Alumni Relations vision of long-term engagement, we have launched the Society of Terrier Alumni Retirees, appropriately named STAR. STAR aims to engage with retired alumni and others preparing for retirement. Through this network, we offer access to valuable tools, programs, and communities to help our alumni stay connected with each other and BU. After the presentation, I will follow up with steps on how you can join the STAR network through BU Connects and share a bit about our Terrier to Terrier retirement mentoring program. By now, you have probably already heard about the importance of social connections and friendships for our mental and physical health. You may also have heard about the epidemic of loneliness. This webinar will cover the research on why we have friends and how to expand and deepen our relationships. It applies to both our working and retirement years. So you're not off the hook yet. Before introducing today's speaker, here are a few housekeeping notes. Today's presentation is being recorded and will soon be available for on-demand viewing on the Alumni and Friends website, found at www.bu.edu/alumni. Today, our speaker is very eager to answer any questions you have about her after her presentation, and you are welcome to submit those through the presentation, using the chat function. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker and College of Arts and Science alumni, Jill Steinberg. Jill Steinberg, PhD, was an emeritus professor at San Jose State University, where she taught psychology. She's a Salzburg Fellow, author, and founder of MyRetirementWorks.com. She received her undergraduate degree from Boston University in 1972 and her doctorate in clinical psychology from Ohio State University in 1978. She taught classes and presented her research on successful retirement to universities, including BU, Google, and other professional organizations. Her research was published in The Aging Consumer: Perspectives from Psychology and Economics, Rutledge 2021. Jill is enjoying retirement. As a lifelong learner, she keeps herself immersed in the retirement literature and now in the social and friends connection literature, and has found time to volunteer to help launch the STAR Network and start new initiatives. For years, Jill has envisioned creating a mentoring program for retirees. This spring, we successfully launched and piloted the Terrier to Terrier Retirement Mentoring Program. I am truly grateful for all the support, contributions, and wonderful ideas Jill brings to the table every time we engage. Jill, thank you so much for joining us today. Let me hand it off to you now.
Thank you. So let's see, you're going to go to the next slides, and that'll start things. Okay, so go to the next one, and that'll, okay.
Now we're playing a covering a I Need a Little Help from My Friend. And BU alumnus friend is between drummer and keyboard players.
Okay, let's give a big round of applause to BU alum Fred Robustelli with his band, The Day Tripper. Fred's a recent retiree and part of our mentor program. Thanks a lot, Fred. I'm going to start by giving the evidence-based information which support the why of friendship, and then I'm going to tell you what we know about how to create and maintain social relations. Having friends, positive, supportive relationships is an important predictor of happiness, life satisfaction, and higher physical and psychological well-being. The Harvard study, the longest longitudinal study about people's satisfaction with life, started 86 years ago in 1938 with Harvard-educated men, very biased sample, but then they expanded it to include working class men, their wives, and children. This study found that the people who stayed the healthiest and lived the longest were the people who had the strongest connection to others. This study also confirmed what we know, that participants become happier as we age, and relationships, not wealth or success, result in happiness. When the first round of participants were in their 80s, the interviewers asked them what they wished they had done differently and what they were most proud of. So get this. The men replied that they wished they hadn't spent as much time at work, but with the people they cared about. And women replied, we wish we hadn't worried so much about what other people thought of us. For both genders, our proudest achievements are our relationships. Our participants were proud of being a good parent, partner, friend, or mentor. And I saw a couple of my BU friends from first year, and I'm 74, signed up. Thank you, Bonnie and Sandy. So the research supports the best predictors of your chances of surviving, especially after a heart attack and stroke, are how well integrated you are with your social network and your local community. Only giving up smoking has anything like the same effect on survival. A lack of social connection is comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. And Dr. Holt Lundstadt, the person whose quote you saw in the beginning about the importance of friendship, her research finds that loneliness increases the risk of early death by as much as 26%. Good social connection correlates with less likely to develop diabetes and arthritis, depression, hypertension, and cognitive decline, and is more connected with increase of purpose. Despite these well-documented benefits, people do not always prioritize spending time with friends. We have data now for the last 20 years, our working hours for men and women have increased, and our time spent with relationships face-to-face has decreased. Americans only spend about 41 minutes a day socializing, which is 1/3 of the amount of time we spend watching TV or commuting. So besides the pleasure, fulfillment, and health benefits of social connections, you need to have friends before the problem arises. People are only likely to make the effort to help you when you have a problem if you're already friends. So I'm going to just say a little bit about loneliness, since you've probably heard it as an epidemic, and the focus here is on social connection. We know that high loneliness and high connection, its opposite, are very stable over 5, 8, even 10 years of time. People don't want to be lonely, but they engage in behaviors to perpetuate it. The research evidence is unequivocal that time spent socializing, particularly in person, is more effective at mitigating loneliness than any other activity. Liliana, you should be on the next slide. Thank you. Since the 60s, Americans have more leisure time, but are spending more of it alone. Although the number of friends appears to be stable, time with friends has declined. There's another phenomena since the 80s of going solo, people choosing to live alone, including 1 out of 3 baby boomers live alone. Oh, by the way, loneliness preceded social media. I'll be telling you a little bit more about it, but all this information about social media creating loneliness, it's been there since before. So why do people engage in behaviors that perpetuate loneliness? Dr. Jeffrey Hall, an eminent researcher on friendship, and a person whose his research and podcasts, he's awesome. Dr. Jeffrey Hall. He's the basis of a lot of the research that I present today. So he says there's three trends. One, we've abdicated our obligation to show up be with others. We kind of say, well, I'll come if I can, or I'll see what I can do. And people don't necessarily show up. If you want good relationships, friendships, or any kind of relationships, you have to know that relationships take work and commitment, and they're not always totally satisfying. Secondly, we've become more annoyed with people. We're not as accepting as we used to be. That decreases our friendships and increased loneliness. And lastly, we lack a place. We need a reason to be out. We need something to do, to be with other people. So people are lonely because they're becoming gradually and systematically accustomed to it. Plus, we lose friends. Friends move, they leave school, they start jobs, they get coupled, they have kids. My research on retirement confirms that all that happens for retired people. Plus, we lose our work friends. We tend to lose them. Either oftentimes we or our friends will move to be in warmer climates or places that are less expensive, or we move to grandchildren, or we have limited ability, or we get sick, or actually friends die. So we end up at an older age having more problems keeping our friendships. This whole presentation is based on the research. There's nothing that I just created. If there's anything that's in particular from my interviews or whatever, I'll tell you if it's not fully in the research. But there are limitations with the literature. It's very limited to college students, same gender friends, and if they do brain scans, it's on right-handed people. So let's get to, and anything that we know in the literature about aging and relationships, that's included here too. But a lot of the information on friendships applies to any age. So let's look at what is friendship. Next slide. So here we have Denise, one of our esteemed BU alum. You can see her with her friends back at BU, and you can see her now. More than anything, that represents what is friendship. So I'd like to ask you, we're going to try something different. We'll see how this goes. I want you to think about your friendships. If you consider yourself a friend or you have good friends, what is it about them that they've earned this honor of being your friend? Could you try in the chat writing a couple characteristics? What are a few characteristics of friendships? And we'll see what BU people are thinking about it. Then I'll tell you what the research. So we'll give you just a little bit of time here. We're not going to say your names. Liliana's just going to say a couple of comments of what you wrote.
Shared emotional experiences, caring and concern, common social interests, good listener, life experiences, trust, true caring, shared interests.
That's great, Liliana. Thank you. Of course, BU alum would say exactly what's in the literature, and maybe I'll get to be some of your friends because you're saying all the things that we'd want. So, Liliana, you'll keep all this information and we can show the participants afterwards. So, Dr. Robin Dunbar, he's another esteemed researcher in the field of friendships, and he's out of Cambridge in England. He wrote a book, Friends, Understanding the Power of Our Most Important Relationships. And he tells about a poignant moment in this BBC documentary, and it's a documentary on people on the autism spectrum. And this 11-year-old boy turns to his mother and says, what's a friend? Can I have one? And then after a while playing, seeing the other kids play together, how do I get a friend? His experience watching the children shows that child that something is going on here, that mysteriously they get to be friends. And his perplexity is a reminder to all of us that we have moments of puzzlement when our overtures of friendships are rejected or a friend lets us down and we don't understand what happened. We thought we were close, or we want more friends. We don't know what to do, and we see other people having close friends. These moments of social anguish are a reminder to us of the importance of friendship and that friends are not in reality all that easy to acquire and maintain. So here's a very technical definition from the researchers. Then I'll tell you what participants say in our kind of language. Researchers define adult friendship as a voluntary, reciprocal, informal, restriction-free, and usually long-lasting, close relationship between two unique partners. If you ask participants in studies, they say exactly what you say. Close friends are people with whom they share intimacy and social proximity, meaning same gender, same age, and same kind of experiences. When asked the participant what counts as a friend, they say, the people you wouldn't feel embarrassed about asking for a favor and whom you wouldn't think twice about helping out. Genuine friends are the sort of people you want to spend time with and you'd put the energy into making the effort. Okay, here's your next guess. How many close friends do people have? Could you put that in the chat? Thank you for doing this. Any answers there, Liliana?
2 to 3. It varies.
I see a 4, a 2, a 3. Okay, so the
5.
research, depending on the research, you got it again, exactly. Somewhere between 3 and 5. Only in 2021, 12% of US adults said they didn't have any close friends, which was way up from 1990 when only 3% said that they didn't have a close friend. And the research doesn't say, it says the importance of friends, but it doesn't give a quantity that you quote is best. So think back to your years at BU. So actually your age is 15 to 25. That's the most friends you'll ever have. It's the most time you'll spend being social. It was the most time getting to know new people. It was expected that we would developmentally get intimate with others without our family. And then after ages 25 to 40, we start to lose friendships. People leave college, they change jobs, they have breakups, and then they start to reconnect with their family of origins. So our social networks initially increased in size as we age, and it declined steadily into older age. Most research suggests that single people have more friends on average and are more likely to socialize and exchange with friends compared to their coupled counterparts. Now, this is fine until maybe later age when people retire. You'll see from my research there it can be problematic. And if people become single through death or divorce. Now I'm going to turn to gender differences. There are definite differences in genders in terms of friendship. The tendency for males to interact in groups and females to interact in dyads is perhaps one of the most well-established findings in the friendship literature. We're not there yet. Go back to 11. Females to females, communication is paramount. We want one-on-one conversation. We want to know, what are you doing? How are you feeling? How are things going? We call, we visit. Males to males, it's the activities, what you do. In terms of the research, it says for males, communication makes no significant difference, though all genders value trust, commitment, and genuineness. If you look at a picture in Facebook and you see two people, it's usually a female with perhaps her mother, her partner, her best friend, or baby. You see males now, Liliana, slide 12. And what do you see? You see males doing activity or being in a group. And here you see Russell, one of our BU alum, in a group at his wedding. Social networks have a very strong degree of gender homophily. Around 70% of women's personal social networks consist of women, and around 70% of men's social networks consist of men. In early adolescence, girl's best friend is likely to be another female. And again, after age 55, we're very gender-based in our friendships. In fact, close cross-gender friends are relatively rare in adult samples. Okay, so slide 13. So remember I mentioned Dunbar in his book? Well, this is his image of men's friendship at old age. We couldn't get the exact picture, but his image is two elderly Greek men sitting on either side of a table in the sunshine, staring out at a cafe. And occasionally they sip their coffee or some other drink, and not a word has passed between them. This is men bonding. And Dunbar's research says how females do friendship or males, it doesn't make, one's not better than the other. They're both good for what they are. But for my retirement research, it can be problematic in a heterosexual couple in retirement. By retirement age, males typically don't have the skills or social structure for close friendships. They rely on their female partner, which can be a problem. She has friends and he wants more from her. And that's a whole other presentation. So let's look at how to be a friend. So here we have Barry, another BU alum, with his BU friend. Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Russell. So physical proximity, how close you live to near someone or how close you sit to them in a class, and homophily, how similar you are between friends, are identified as the fundamental building blocks of friendships: physical closeness and similarity. The quality of a friendship depends directly on the time we invest in it and how we spend the time. As the child in that autism documentary got, and we can get, the skills that make social connection possible are quite sophisticated, yet we take them for granted. We don't take classes in them. We don't usually teach them. And we learn from others that might be fumbling with their friendships. That's why you're here today, and thank you. Okay, so you have two more guesses. Here's a guess. How many hours does it take to make a friend? Could you put that in the chat? Okay, you're
6,
getting right in the range. Oh, go ahead, Liliana, you say it. I was watching. A lifetime.
150, 100, 15, 55.
I have to say, whoever wrote a lifetime, that isn't exactly how they expressed it in the literature, but you're right. That's really true. Okay, so the literature says we're going to get back to Jeff Hall. He's the one who's written an article, basically, how many hours does it take to make a friend? You can watch his podcast. He's really awesome. And he writes about the effects of the internet on relationships. So he says casual friendships emerge around 30 hours. Friendships are around 50 hours. Good friendships begin around 140 hours, and close friendships not till after 300 hours. And he says that friendships actually start to happen pretty quickly, within 3 to 9 weeks of meeting. And for close friendships, it can take 3 to 4 months till they start to become closer. Okay, this is your last guess. It's a little obscure. What do you think is the most common friendship turning point? Think of your friendship. So we'll give you just a little bit more time. Think when you went, this person is my friend. Maybe you thought they were acquaintance and you're starting to realize, wow, we are friends. What do you think happened? What's the most common turning point?
During a crisis, shared difficult experience, a hobby, the person offered to do something, death or moving away are a few things that I see in the chat. Confiding, location change, geographic location, relocation, traveling.
Wow, that's good, Liliana. We really have to save these and send the answers because you're saying exactly what's in the literature and you're saying better than's in the literature. Thank you so much for doing this. I've never tried this out where I ask the audience to do it. And people are very informative and generous for doing that. The most common friendship turning point is participating in a joint activity when both people elect to spend the time together. Now, I want to tell you that people don't realize how much context plays an important part in friendships. So thanks, Liliana. So context create opportunity for friendships and kind of dictate who you're going to become friends with. So when I was asking you to think back to your BU life, BU kind of gave us opportunities to create friendship. They were opportunities for ours to take. We lived in residence halls possibly, or in your classes, you see same people over and over. We even had orientation weeks. I was joking with Liliana. I thought we should use Fred's recording and have a mixer online like we did back then, or at least when I was back in school. But when we leave these environments that kind of give us the opportunities for friendships, we struggle and we think, gee, it used to be easier. Now, what's wrong with me? It's so hard to make friends. You're not alone. It's the context. People, when we're given a situation where it's easier to make friends, when people are around, when it's kind of their developmental issues to make friends, that's way easier. We move from that. We don't have the context, and people's priorities and responsibilities change. The successes of falling in love or having a great career are actually impediments to keeping friendship. So I'm going to turn now to the types of communication and maintenance activities that are best for creating and strengthening friendships. Face-to-face social interaction is the very interaction that builds new relationships and maintains existing ones. You're going to hear me say this over and over. The shift from superficial to intimate happens when we share activities, like you said, and we start to have more meaningful conversations. When we know the person well enough that we can actually catch up, or we can joke around with them, we can express affection, we feel more comfortable to share our concerns. Close friends talk more often and in greater depth and affection than do casual friends. And the shift from superficial to intimate typically happens about a month after meeting. And Jeffrey Hall has this. This is in press. It's not in print yet. In contrast, small talk and talk about mundane topics are less likely to meet relatedness needs and don't contribute actually to relationship development. It meets other needs, but not in terms of getting closer. So I keep emphasizing in person and face to face as the literature does, but social media is actually a good way to stay in contact with people when they're not available face to face. Social media is most valuable when there's a responsive person on the other end. And social media is good for strengthening existing relationships, but it's not effective for establishing relationships. You need face to face. Hall's research suggests that online social interactions are most valuable when we actually need people the most. When you're far away from someone geographically and you're concerned or feeling lonely or wondering what's going on, then texting or video chats really can help. One of Jeff's colleagues who's active in a subreddit community of people with multiple sclerosis, he's told Jeff that actually he can find comfort and understanding sometimes more with the people that he knows online who have similar situations with him than he can find offline. And many people from minoritized groups find connection and community through social media too. With people, then they develop the relationship. So it can be an okay starting, but eventually you have to do in person. The research shows that Facebook does not increase connection. It can increase disconnection. It is not nourishing. Although lonely people will go to social media to try and connect, and momentarily it will distract them from the loneliness, but it's not a good use of their time because when they get off, they're no more connected. There are other better things to do. What seems essential if you want to keep your friendships or you want friendships is you have to have time in person. When Jeffrey Hall was asked, what's the best use of my leisure time? He says, hanging out with people, talking. The final phase in human life seems to kick in around the 60s when we start to lose friends through death. And, you know, when you lose friends when you're younger, somehow we have the motivation or the context or the ability to replace them with new friends. When we're older, it just seems harder to do that. And we're less mobile, and maybe we don't hear as well, or maybe we don't want to drive at night. So we're not as likely to make up for the friends that we lost. And it's physical mobility as much as anything that causes our withdrawal from social interaction in older age. We just find it harder to get to places where people gather. When people move away, and you mentioned that moving as part of friendships, and we don't, if people move away from each other and you don't have the opportunity to meet up so often, your friendships can become more distant rather quickly. If you don't see people and you don't do things to maintain the relationship, your relationship can become distant within just 3 months. Your best friends, if they move and you don't do things to keep it up, within 3 years, a close friendship can become an acquaintance. Jeff Hall says when people move, they change their world and they need to do things to rebuild it. You need to establish routines. So you need to keep in touch with your old friends. You need to keep nourishing that, knowing now that that relationship's at risk. And when you move, you need to establish new relationships. When you're in a new environment, there's a degree of openness. People see you as somewhat different. You see others. Say yes to invitations. Take advantage of social experiences. The relationship says you have about 4 to 6 months of this openness. And if you don't take the chance, then you've missed this window of opportunity. The openness is gone. Okay, so I'm going to end with the best practices and of how to have friendships and maintain them. But before I do, I wanted to say something about the literature in COVID. The literature, you know, they got to study loneliness and how people maintain friends. COVID was unfortunately an experiment in living. And I just want to end with this part on that COVID is that animals actually, they found pets made a big difference for the people during COVID. And as a person who retired and got a terrier, I was happy to see that dogs won out over cats. All animals are good because you can talk to them, you can hold them. Dogs tend to make you go out and exercise and can facilitate interactions with others. So here we go. Best practices. This is all from Jeff Hall. Thanks, Jeff. First thing is strengthen the signal. When given the choice, and you can prioritize your communication, start with face-to-face. If you can't do face-to-face, then phone or video chat, then texting, then social media, then group chat. All is better than nothing. So strengthen the signal. Secondly, increase the quality of your communication. Become a responsive listener and appropriate self-disclosure. You know, as a clinical psychologist, I saw so much time in therapy where people, whatever the issue was, it was mainly communication. People weren't listening well to each other. They were ready to jump in. So you need to actually work hard to listen to other people and reach out to them, ask them questions, be willing to show your love and express affection. People want to know that you care about them. You know, people think I can't have friendship because I'm not funny enough. People won't like me, or I'm not interesting enough. What people want is to feel like they matter. Just be genuine. So even if it's new skills and you feel awkward with the skill, that's okay, but only be genuine in what you express and what you do. Increase your quality communication throughout the day. Oh, and get this, few conversations that involve more than 4 people last for any length of time. The limit of 4 to a conversation is a remarkably robust finding. If a 5th person joins, it tends to split the conversation into 2 conversations within as little as half a minute. Okay, so third thing to do is tighten the circle. Focus on the people that really matter to you, the few people that you really care about. Spend more time with them, communicate with them. The research really shows that high quality communication with people we really care about goes a lot farther with the people we're less close to. I have a caveat to that. Laura Carstensen, who's at Stanford and studies longevity, says the same thing, that we want quality relationships when we get older and we focus on family. I encourage you to broaden your social connections. Don't just focus on your family. Include single people. Remember I said 1 out of 3 baby boomers are single, living alone? Well, you can be pretty certain that you're going to become single and want to belong and have social connections and support. So we want you to have that connection, and not everyone finds good connections or has a great family. So be open to others. Prioritize the people you already know. If people you know live far geographically now, make phone calls, do ongoing things, and schedule it to make sure you keep in touch. Consider renewing old friendships that were good, the ones that you cared about, but kind of just drifted apart. When the people are asked, why don't you reach out to old friends? They give the same answers they do. Why don't they reach out to strangers? People are afraid. We're afraid people won't like us or won't want to talk to us. So here's an intervention that works. Sociality is overwhelmingly more positive after the fact. Once you do these things, you tend to feel better about the people, and you feel like the experience was better than you ever imagined. Of course, that's not 100% true, but typically in the research shows that sociality is overwhelmingly more positive after the fact. So I ask you to remember this information that I'm telling you versus the fears you have in your head. Okay, so lastly, make friendships a priority. Hang out with people. And if you're at a stage like I am, where it's harder to get together with people, if you're the one that has the skills to initiate or the ability to still drive and get to your friends, do it. Don't just say we should get together, get together. Don't just say we should keep in touch, keep in touch. And be compassionate and understanding to the other people that might not have as good as skills or the ability to get together. They want you to do this for them, even if they don't express it. People appreciate you reaching out more than you think and more than they tell you. Follow through and don't be a flake. Like I said in the beginning, people aren't as, they say things, but then they don't follow through. They say, maybe I'll come. If you want to have friendships, make it a priority and follow through. Say yes if someone asks. And if it turns out that you can't show up, reschedule right away. Show the person that you care and you're not rejecting them. Accountability Following through matters as much as how you communicate. Go where people are. Go to, if you, there's certain clubs you like going to, whether it's a swim club or a golf club or something, or some knitting club or a dog walking club. Find, if you member organizations, or you have a place of worship or a place you take your dog. Go ongoing, become a regular. The more you show up somewhere people gather, the more opportunities there are to create a connection. There's something called the exposure effect, whereby we tend to regard familiar faces more positively, and that reduces our reluctance to talk and increases our willingness to chat. Once you have a shared point of reference, you have something to talk about and a reason to do so. This puts you in a natural path to friendship. You can start with some easy small talk, like talking about the dog or the weather, and that can lead to bigger talk. The research says there is actually strength in weak ties also. You know how you go into a store and maybe you recognize someone there, an employee, or they recognize you, or they recognize your pet, or you're walking in the neighborhood and you smile at someone. Those unplanned and spontaneous encounters increase happiness and also increase the chance that you might make a friend. The longer you go without friends, the harder it is to get started. So I'm going to end with Hall's research that confirms people are longing for closeness, and we have a fundamental need to belong. So I encourage you to defy the research. Don't create regret like the Harvard men. Create connection. Be brave. Take action today. And thank you for coming to this and hopefully being really that you got something out of this. So Liliana, I can answer a few questions, then you have some ending information. So let's see if there are any questions in the chat that seem like something I could answer.
There was a question about how do you navigate opposite gender friendships into your life if you are married?
There isn't a good literature on that. So what I'm going to tell you is based on being a therapist when I had people ask that, and in my own life. So this is just off the cuff. I've not been asked that question. And like I said, it's an excellent question because anyway, if you're secure in your friendship, I don't see what difference it makes the other person, what gender they are. If you're clear in your relationship and you want time with others, that is not a threat. That builds relationships. So I would encourage you, if you're concerned about that in your relationship, that you talk to your partner before you do it. So you can say, hey, I heard about this on this talk. And I personally have very close friendships with same and different gender friends. And it only makes a difference in the goodness of how I feel and what I contribute to my friendship. It's just not a threat because friends don't threaten my relationship. They're each unique and individual. So what I'd like to do is get that person's name, and I will look that up to see if there's anything else I could say, but that was my very off the cuff, not well thought out answer to an excellent question. Any others? I hope they're not as difficult.
What about intergenerational friendships?
I'm not sure about the question. The literature only supports that there are good things to do, and there are more institutions that try to foster that. So I'm not sure. I just would totally support that. And the literature and people aging, it says we do better when we have close people in our age that are younger generation. So whether we define them as friends or just people we care about, I totally support it, and the literature does. And again, it doesn't say the how to. The generic information I gave of how to do friendships is the same thing you'd want to do with any age friendship. Thanks for that question too.
So
Any
I have
more?
noticed that some of my friends and family members personality traits have intensified as they grow older. That is, they are always right. Your thoughts on this?
Well, my thoughts are, first of all, I don't know your friends and family, and I can't even say the literature does or doesn't support it because that isn't exactly in there. But I will say we also, like I said, get less accepted. So we might be experiencing them as more right because we're less tolerant of them being, quote, more right. I would say that doesn't make for good friendship or good closeness. So that's a whole other issue of how to deal with if that is really true in your family members. And anyway, that's all I can say about that now because I don't know anything else to say except if you're finding yourself being that way, more righteous, then I'd encourage you to look at that because it doesn't make for good communication and closeness. But thanks for that very serious, true, and funny comment question. Okay,
What about friendships that have diminished due to falling out? How do you or should you rebuild?
wow, you're asking me really difficult questions. So I have approached falling out uh like any other relation that falls out. If you want it to rekindle, then I encourage you to think through carefully about your contributions to why it fell out. When I would do therapy, I would have my clients videotape and go home. That's like an old-fashioned world, but anyway, I would videotape and they would go home and watch it. And I asked them to watch themselves, not their partner, because we tend to look at the other person and think, what did they do wrong? And why am I mad at them? And blah, blah, blah. Look at yourself. What did you do to contribute to the downfall of that relationship? And if you want to rekindle it, think carefully about what went wrong. And if there are things about the other person you're not accepting, could you accept them now? And then go contact them and say, you're important to me, and I'd like to see, is there any way we could rekindle this? I miss you, or I care about you. And again, I'm saying these things from limited data because that's not what has been in the literature or what I study. But Liliana will give me these questions and I will try and read more to tell you. That was my quick gut reaction. I hope when I hear it again that I still feel good about it. And, there could be reasons that the relationship broke up that are still true, or they could be that other people were influencing you and now you realize, hey, they were wrong. I need to look into this person. They were very important to me. So I wish you the strength and clarity of mind and open heart to approach others. They might really want you to be their friend, and it's at least worth a one-time try. Okay, last question.
Any
Any,
resources you can recommend on how to time one's retirement? For example, how much pre-planning should one do for keeping busy?
wow. Okay. So first of all, you're going to have my email if you need to contact me. But I would recommend for Boston University, I've given a webinar called Successful Retirement. I would recommend go watching that and watching my more recent webinar, Finding Purpose in Retirement. That or going to my website right there, because on my website, if you go to the research area, it's not totally up to date, but it's up to date enough on the literature on how to have a successful retirement. And as Liliana said, it's been published in a really esteemed book. And I'm the only chapter in that book that doesn't have to do with finances, but quality of life. And a lot of what got published there, I'd say 80% of what's on my website is current. None of it is bad information. I just might have more information. So those three are easy, quick things. You can watch 2 webinars from Boston University of successful retirement, finding purpose in retirement, and go to my website. And fourthly, of course, you can email me. That's a whole other long presentation and research about planning, but I will tell you something that came up in my research that wasn't in the literature that you'll find on my website or in my publications. It's I would suggest that you implement things before you retire, that people wait. And I'll just end with this. In terms of retirement, they think, oh, this is great. I'm going to have free time. And people that actually even kind of plan like for a long weekend. Oh, I'm going to get to do this and I'm going to travel and spend time with my friends or garden or read or exercise. And then, so they're very happy in the beginning. And then there's a major dip of what now? Is this all there is? People have trouble finding purpose in older age. And so there's this major dip, and 25% of people actually never really enjoy their retirement. And that's from those of us that are privileged enough to even retire and have the resources to do it well. So I'd say start with what I recommended, and then you can email me if you want to ask more. But I'd say planning way in advance, thinking really what you're going to do, and implement something. And whatever you implement doesn't have to be the thing you're going to do later. It just gets you in the process of doing something, reevaluating, looking for resources of what do I do next. Anyway, I think I'm going to end with that. And Liliana, do you have any comments you want to say?
Jill, thank you so much for your presentation today. I appreciate your time, and all of us appreciate your insights for giving us an interesting perspective on what to consider when we're looking to maintain friendships and social connections. I myself have used some of the skills and things that you spoke about to maintain friendships from people that I went to grad school or, college with, and I've even maintained friendships over 40 years with a friend that I met from work, and her and I are still friends to this day. Also want to thank everyone else for joining, especially those who continue to contribute and support BU and our students through your donations. Keep an eye out on the alumni events calendar for new news about upcoming events and resources. I hope you'll sign up for the next STAR webinar, which is financing financial planning, the what and how, on Wednesday, March 19th at noon, featuring another BU alum, Mitch Tugman. In the meantime, join the STAR Network by logging into buconnects.com, buconnects.com, and clicking on the Society of Terrier Alumni Retiree links under Groups and Networks. The Terrier to Terrier Mentoring Program is a virtual mentoring program that Jill helped launch this past spring. So we're grateful for that and for the support of the volunteers from the STAR Network. So thank you all for getting that done. It's a retiree and late career alumni participants are paired retired alumni mentors. Together, they will navigate the retirement process, address common concerns such as pre-retirement planning, timing, and finding purpose in retirement. So if you're interested in volunteering for STAR or have questions about the mentoring program, please email me at the email listed on the screen. And then also call me. My phone number is there as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great day and a great evening, wherever you might be. All the best. And again, thank you, Jill.
They're asking for the links in the chat. So if people left, perhaps you can send the links afterwards to everyone. Thank you. Okay. Yes, there will be a recording of this.
All the best, everyone. I'm going to log off.
Thanks, Barry. Okay, we're logged off.
I'm ending now. I'll call you.